have debit? And I said, yeah, I do. And I gave him my debit card. Never thought a thing of it.
Hundreds of victims defrauded out of thousands of dollars. Police make arrests in a debit card taxi scam we first told you about. And before it shows up all over your Instagram feed, we'll give you a preview of the Toronto Light Festival. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. We're learning more about the province's move to cut the cost of university and college tuition next year. Students will save hundreds of dollars, but the province also announced major changes to the Ontario Student Assistance Program. Changes that caught many students by surprise. Greg Ross has more.
This is an initiative, a plan to make post-secondary education affordable and accessible to students.
The Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities says by slashing tuition 10% across the board, college and university students can expect savings of hundreds of dollars per year.
And for a student attending an Ontario college, they will see a savings of, on average, $340. Students pursuing a general arts and science degree at an Ontario university will see their tuition reduced by an average of $660.
But critics say the savings only mask other changes in the plan that could end up costing students more in the end.
I think it's like a bait and switch. Like, you know, you go to the showroom and you see this fancy car in the window, and then they drive you off with the jalopy, right? That breaks down a block away.
In addition to the tuition reduction, the PC government has also restructured the Ontario Student Assistance Plan, which helps students pay for tuition through grants and loans. The majority of grants will now go to families with an annual income of less than $50,000. But the old plan made it possible for low-income students to cover their entire tuition with grants. That has been eliminated. The threshold to qualify for a student loan is also changing.
We saw the government subsidizing high-income earners, people with $175,000 worth of income.
That was the threshold under the Liberal government. Under the new plan, students must now come from families with incomes under $140,000 to qualify for OSAP. That has many students worried about their future.
You're definitely going to see some students who will no longer qualify. And then the question will beg itself of whether or not they can actually finish their degree.
Students will now also start incurring interest on their OSAP loans as soon as they graduate, as opposed to a 6-month interest-free grace period under the old system.
That 6-month grace period was meant to be, a grace period to let us sort of, get a job and start building up funds in our savings account in order to pay off without the interest. So now hearing that kind of makes me more stressed.
There are also concerns about the potential long-term effects this tuition reduction could have on the quality of post-secondary education. A 10% tuition cut would take about $360 million away from universities and $80 million from colleges. The province says that colleges and universities are just going to have to absorb those losses and simply adapt. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And another change from Queen's Park, made with a lot less fanfare. MPPs are increasing their housing allowances in response to Toronto's hot real estate market. The Canadian Press has obtained documents that show the monthly rental allowance went from just over $1,900 to $2,300, a jump of over 20%. Now, this only applies to MPPs who live at least 50 kilometres from Queen's Park. The hike was called necessary by both the PCs and the NDP, citing the higher rental prices in the GTA. But Liberal MPP Michael Coteau, who does not qualify for the allowance, said it makes politicians look bad, adding they continue to say that everyone is going to have to sacrifice, but for some reason they are not part of that sacrifice. A 67-year-old woman is in life-threatening condition tonight after a hit and run in Scarborough. Police were called to Danforth Road and Patterson Avenue, that's near Warden, just after 7 o'clock for reports of a collision. The woman was found unconscious and taken to hospital. Police say the driver fled the scene. They are currently looking for a dark-colored SUV. The eastbound and westbound lanes of Danforth and Warden are closed while police investigate. Well, it took just over an hour for a jury to find a Toronto woman guilty today of terror charges, all tied to an attack at a Canadian Tire back in 2017. The Crown says Rahab Dugmosh was clear at the time she was acting for the benefit of ISIS. She did not present a defense at trial.
This was an unusual prosecution, an unusual litigation in the sense that Ms. Dugmosh was not She chose not to retain counsel, and she did not participate to the same extent as accused often participate. So that raised some challenges for the Crown and the court.
Duke Mosh admitted to going after workers at this Cedar Brae Mall Canadian Tire with a golf club and a butcher knife back in July of 2017, all in an effort to help ISIS. She was charged with 2 counts of assault with a weapon, 1 of carrying a weapon, and 1 of leaving Canada for the purpose of committing a criminal offense. That last charge is linked to a trip she took back in 2016, trying to get to Syria to join ISIS. She was stopped in Turkey after her brother tipped off police. And Toronto police are releasing video tonight of a New Year's Day attack that left a man seriously injured, and a warning these images may be disturbing to some viewers.
See, at this point, that blue Dodge Charger that pulls out and around what I believe to be an Uber stop there, there was a verbal interaction between them at that point down there.
Now, this happened at Queen and Bathurst just after midnight on January 1st. The victim, David Shelnut, was walking with a woman when the suspects in a passing car yelled out a lewd remark. Now, Shelnut then picked up a bag of garbage you see there, and he threw it at the car. The man got out of the vehicle and started fighting with Shelnut. One suspect knocked him to the ground. Another hit him as he lay unconscious on the sidewalk. The suspects ran back to the car and took off. Now, Shelnut was in a coma, but investigators say he's now recovering.
He's recovering. He's talking, and he's able to walk around.
The suspects are facing aggravated assault charges. They fled in a blue 2019 Dodge Charger SXT. Police haven't been able to determine the license plate, though. Investigators are asking anyone who has dash cam footage of the car or recognizes these suspects to give them a call. And a major update to a story we first told you about last year, a debit card theft ring that involves Toronto taxi cab drivers. Toronto police making multiple arrests in a scam they said defrauded customers out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Chris Glover has been following the story for months and has the latest.
$1,000 in ATM, $2,000 from an ATM.
Janny Yates tallies up $7,000 worth of fraudulent withdrawals in December.
We thought, oh no, how am I going to buy Christmas presents?
Like hundreds of other victims of the taxi cab debit card scam, she didn't see it coming.
And he said to me, oh, I can't give you change. So he said, but do you have a debit? And I said, yeah, I do. And I gave him my debit card. Never thought a thing of it.
The alleged scam is part tech, part sleight of hand. The customer's PIN is electronically recorded on an altered debit machine. Police say it sends an error message and the customer hands it back to the cabbie. The driver switches the card with another from the same financial institution, typically one they've already defrauded and drained. Then, with the new victim's card and PIN, police say the accomplice drains the account.
Well, the thing that frightened me was that it was myself who noticed and not the bank.
The bank rebated her account. Police say one bank reported more than $1 million in losses to the scam. Police executed 3 search warrants and seized a debit machine and financial documents, leading to 5 arrests. Taxi drivers we spoke to say fraud can happen in any industry.
You could see any people in any dress. Could be taxi driver, could be police officer, could be, the radio showman. Everybody could be that one.
Toronto police say the cab companies are not directly involved and are helping authorities. But in some cases, the alleged crooks could be using the vehicles of unsuspecting family members.
There could be some irresponsible individual who is handing out a vehicle to someone who's not properly licensed or shouldn't be driving, but we have very strict policies about that.
Beck Taxi has taken preventative measures like allowing people to pay with their phones and ensuring all legit debit machines have Beck branding.
And the driver should not take your debit card. This is what I cannot stress enough, and we're having these conversations with drivers.
Toronto police have been warning about this scam for years. In 2017, they arrested a man and charged him with more than 180 offenses. And it's not just our area. In Montreal in 2015, there were more than 150 victims, and they lost about $500,000. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Been a busy evening for meteorologist Colette Kennedy. We've got snow overnight to look at, but also got to talk about what's in store for this weekend.
We sure do, because of the storm that's going to move in then. So what we get tonight, that's going to be just child's play compared to what could happen this weekend. We're still watching the track of that storm as it's kind of developing, but a winter storm watch in place from Hamilton around through the Niagara Peninsula. We're talking about snow and blowing snow. Amounts somewhere in that 15 to 25 centimeter range. It looks like through these areas, probably some lake enhancement. And then elsewhere, including for the city of Toronto and all the way back towards parts of southwestern Ontario, it's a special weather statement because lesser amounts, but still some blowing snow. That's through the day Saturday. Tonight, what we're talking about is this lighter snow that's just kind of pushing through the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. We're looking at some places it may be just a bit of a trace, but otherwise about 1 to 2, maybe even 3 centimeters. Then it moves out tomorrow morning. It's still probably wet for the rush hour, even though it'll move out of our way. Friday, quieter through the rest of the day, and then the next system starts coming in. Now, we won't really feel the effects of it till we get towards Saturday. These are just the accumulations for what's happening overnight tonight. You see they're very low. -3 for overnight tonight, and we're talking about tomorrow afternoon 1 degree, and I want you to enjoy that 1 degree very much because much colder air is going to be pushing in for the weekend, and I'm going to show you what those numbers look like and talk more about the storm system coming up.
Advice taken. Enjoy the 1 degree while we can. Thanks, Colette.
That's right. You're welcome.
Well, they say the best way to love winter is to embrace it. And once again, the Distillery District is providing a reason to get out and embrace that dark and cold. The 3rd edition of the Toronto Light Festival opens to the public tomorrow. Our Taylor Simmons gives us a preview tonight of some of the exhibits that will soon be filling up your Instagram feed.
This is the 3rd year the Toronto Light Festival has taken over the Distillery District. There are almost 3 dozen pieces here for you to explore, and a tip from the organizer for all you social media aficionados: there are no special effects or filters needed here.
We have people this year from all over the world, as far as Russia, as close as Toronto, every different type of light form, every different type of lights, LED, we have fire, we have lasers. Big sculptures, small sculptures, some inside, some not.
This is double helix. We thought, well, in a humorous sense, you might say people all over the world now are playing with DNA, right? And so we thought we'd give the citizens of Toronto a chance to play with their own DNA.
The polar bear is made from car hoods, and the car hoods do represent the carbon footprint that is affecting climate change. And, you know, polar bears are on the front lines.
We realized that the white car hoods were a perfect surface to project on, and that it could sort of take on a completely different aspect at night.
We're here with Reese to launch their new product, the Reese's Pieces Peanut Candy, which is a peanut inside a peanut. And that essentially gave us the inspiration to create this like kind of continuous light tunnel with the rings inside the rings.
The overall meaning for the Light Festival is just really to enjoy life and to enjoy each other. So we have winter in Toronto. We want people to get out, have fun, play down here, and feel like a kid.
As you can see, all of the exhibits are interactive and they're free for you to come see and use up until March 3rd. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
A local tattoo artist is headed to India for the 2nd year in a row. Her job there? Medical tattoos, covering up scars and burns, some from acid attacks. I'm Lorenda Redekop. I'll have more coming up.
We have some breaking news at this point. A man is dead after a hit and run near Bathurst and Lennox, just south of Bloor Street. This happened around 9:30 this evening. The victim was found unconscious and pronounced dead at the scene. Police are looking for a dark green garbage truck. The intersection is blocked while police investigate. We are hearing from a woman tonight who thinks she may be the victim of the current tensions between the Canadian and Chinese governments. She says she went to China to visit her dying father, only to be denied and then detained on the way home. She arrived at Pearson tonight.
When the police boarded the plane and everyone was ordered to sit down, the way they talked to me, they was very serious, and my Chinese is not that good. So at first, for a moment, I thought I was under arrest, and I couldn't really understand what was happening.
Tiana Wang claims that even though she was granted a visa to enter China, she and her family were bullied by Chinese officials when they got there and were forced to fly back to Seoul and book a flight home. Well, that flight had a transfer in Beijing, which she thought would be fine, but when the plane landed in Beijing, she and her husband were taken off the plane, separated, and then told to go back to South Korea immediately. She says they even tried to separate her from her baby daughter. She thinks this is all in retaliation to the current political climate between China and Canada. Well, a local tattoo artist is heading to India tomorrow on a medical mission. She's aiming not just to add art to people's bodies, but to cover up something that's already there, like scars and burns from acid attacks. Lorenda Redekop shows us how.
Amber Gottsmeister mostly does cosmetic tattoos, adding permanent makeup and fixing eyebrows. Tattooed by someone else and in need of help.
I started doing a lot of correctional work for the eyebrows that turned blue and green and purple and orange and all these crazy colors. I started to see how that could translate into correcting skin tone.
That's evolved into this. Medical tattoos, tattooing over scars and burns, some the result of acid attacks. She first traveled to India to volunteer a year ago with the organization The India Project. Surgeons work on more severe cases. She also helped patients mask the skin condition vitiligo. In India, it can mean discrimination. She recalls one teenage patient she saw.
And he wasn't able to get married until those spots were filled. He traveled for hours and hours and hours walking to come and see me and having the spots taken care of, and then he came back the next day to bring me gifts and thank me, and yeah, it was very, very sweet.
There are also victims of fires, like one girl who'd been cooking at an outdoor stove.
One of the embers popped and attached to her clothing, but I was able to give her her eyebrow back and fill in some of the spots along her face, and yeah, she was really happy.
Following up with those former patients will be her first priority when she arrives, doing more tattooing and also seeing how their healing has progressed. Last year, she worked on 75 patients. Her goal this year is 100 in a week and a half, but it all depends on how complex the cases are. And this year, she'll also have a local Indian tattoo artist seeing what she does, so this work can continue after she leaves. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, a busy night for MLSE. Both the Leafs and Raptors in action tonight. The Raptors game coming right down to the wire. We'll have highlights when we come back. Colette Kennedy's back with her long-range forecast. Let's talk about the weekend. This is the weekend everyone's going to be talking about the weather.
Absolutely, and there's so many components to it of what's going to be affecting us. So very cold air moves in, and we're also looking at some windy conditions. So wind chills will be significant, and any snow we receive, and we'll be receiving some, will be blowing around. So heavier amounts expected in these areas you see in yellow, and that's why Environment Canada has the winter storm watch. I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I think it bears repeating. So maybe 15 to 25 centimeters through these areas. There's a special weather statement in place, though, and that is for Toronto, and that goes back towards southwestern Ontario, where it's more like 5 to 10 or 15 centimeters, and we're still watching how this thing is going to track in, because that is what is going to determine how much snow we'll see. If it pushes further south, we see very little. A little bit further north, and we're going to see some of those totals going up for the city. So overnight tonight, it's just a few centimeters. This moves through. It'll move out in the early morning hours, and then we'll see kind of a mix of sun and cloud, and maybe a few flurries through the day. It's not until we get towards Saturday that we're seeing that next system coming through. And as it moves in, it looks like it'll be towards, again, timing we're watching, but the lunch hour and then through the afternoon and overnight Saturday that we'll see the most significant snowfall coming down from this, and also the winds picking up, so really blowing it around. So this is for tonight. Now I want to add in what this particular model is showing as we take it all the way through to Sunday and get past that storm system on Saturday. So it's giving 7 centimeters all the way up towards Barrie. Some of the other models are keeping those kind of numbers way down further south and lesser amounts further north. 20 centimeters Hamilton, over 25 for St. Catharines. So this is just kind of one idea of what we're seeing in terms of accumulations. Overnight tonight, southwestern Ontario, a couple of centimeters through here, -4 for the overnight low, and 0 other than London, a little bit milder tomorrow, and kind of a mix of sun and cloud. You'll see that system, of course, moving in a little bit sooner there, late overnight Friday, in fact, coming in and into Saturday morning. Overnight tonight for the Golden Horseshoe, we have -3 to -4 everywhere except St. Catharines, -2 with that light snow and still that chance of some flurries. And these temperatures right here kind of take them in here, take them in outside, enjoy it for tomorrow, because this is some of the mildest air we're going to see for a while. Look at some of these numbers. So the storm system on Saturday, Friday night into Saturday, the cold air moves in, -11, but even in the afternoon, feeling like -18. So some of these overnights, we could see, especially Sunday and Monday, it feeling like -30 in terms of the wind chill. Windy conditions in here as well. So lots to be watching out for, and not good travel conditions coming up on Saturday or even Sunday with some of the blowing snow we may be seeing, Mike.
That's looking brutal. Okay, thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
But the Leafs hoping to turn things around tonight against a tough team, the #1 Tampa Bay. They're up 1-0 when Kasper Kapanen has his shot stopped, but Nazem Kadri grabs a rebound to tie the game. Patrick Marleau gets a weak shot past the Lightning goaltender in the second. They regain the lead again, but Tampa ties it up once again. That's until John Tavares' quick pass is able to find Mitch Marner. He becomes the first Leaf player to begin his career with 3 straight 60-point seasons. Toronto holds on to win 4-2. The Raptors hosting the Suns in the second game of a back-to-back. Toronto resting Kawhi Leonard tonight. And the Raps come out hot in the opening half. Lon Wright with the steal. He goes behind back to Kyle Lowry. Lowry finishes it off. The Suns come back, though, after the break. Nice three-pointer here. This has turned into a very close game in the fourth. With the score tied at 107, Serge Ibaka takes the pass and gets a hook shot to fall, but the Suns would tie it up once again. So in the dying seconds, Pascal Siakam has the game in his hands. He lays it in with a buzzer beater. Toronto wins 111-109. We'll be right back after the break. If Saturday's winter storm blows out of the area by Sunday night, we may be in for quite a treat in the skies. There is a total lunar eclipse taking place Sunday night, the last one in these parts for the next 2.5 years. It's caused when the full moon passes, as you see here, through the shadow of the Earth. Now, it should start around 9:30 Sunday night, reaching its peak just after midnight. It'll look quite red. It'll all be over, though, by 3 a.m., and unlike a solar eclipse, you can stare at this one all you want. No special filters needed. I'm looking forward to getting out and taking a look at it, but I am not looking forward to how incredibly cold it is going to be Sunday night. Well, we want to leave you now with something to warm us all up, some pictures from the Toronto Light Festival at the Distillery District. I'm off tomorrow night, but Talia Ricci has your next news at 11. Good night.